probably
Executive
consider
Committee, May
just
10th, 2019.
ending.
The Executive Committee meeting of May 10th to order. First item is approval of meeting minutes.
So moved.
Questions or thank you. We've got a motion from Mayor Wells.
Second.
Second from Mayor Salas. Please vote. I think we're all in. Public comment? Do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Robin? No. Great. Moving on to consent, just information item. Who's presenting on that? Anybody or nothing? And we don't need approval? No. We're moving on. Reports, review of draft board agendas. Robin, welcome. Good morning.
So I'm going to run through your draft May 24th board business agenda. We start off as usual with our approval of meeting minutes, followed by public comments, and then our standing PAC chairs reports and executive directors reports. Under the consent agenda, we have our standing approval of proposed solicitations and contract awards, followed by the PAC actions report. This is when the board ratifies the delegated actions taken by the Policy Advisory Committee. Item number 7 is the FY 2018 Transportation Development Act Productivity Improvement Recommendations. This will be going through TC and then to the board for final approval. These are certain performance requirements that the transit operators need to meet on an annual basis in order to receive their TDA funding, and so it flows through SANDAG for approval. Items 8 and 9 are monthly reports on delegated actions and meetings and events attended on behalf of SANDAG. And item 10, this is our annual report. This is when we use the latest population figures to recompute and see if there's any changes that need to be made for a weighted vote formula distribution. Items 11 and 12 are quarterly reports on finances and the latest on our transportation projects. Under Chair's reports, we have our standing updates on the regional plan and the airport connectivity subcommittee. And then that finally brings us to the report. So item 15 is the proposed Office of the Independent Performance Auditor Charter. So this is something that our new Independent Performance Auditor is bringing to the Audit Committee actually this afternoon. Pending their recommendation, it would then go to the board on the 24th for adoption. Item 16 is the Regional Electric Vehicle Charger Program Partnership. So this is really exciting. Under our current regional plan, SCS, SANDAG has committed to investing $30 million over the next 30 years to support a regional charger incentive program. And so we would like to partner with the California Energy Commission to try to leverage that investment to bring in additional funding from Sacramento, potentially as much as $20 million. And so in order to do that and underscore our commitment to that, we're going to be asking the board to adopt a resolution that we can then provide to the CEC. Item 17 is kind of a technical item. It's 2015 ozone standard conformity determination. This is something that we need to do for federal compliance purposes. It went through the Transportation Committee last week. There was a lot of discussion, and staff received direction that they want to make sure that discussion is appropriately conveyed to the Board of Directors, so we've made this report at your next meeting so that we can talk about that one. Item 18 is the 2019 Capital Grant Receipts Revenue Bonds Review of Draft Documents. And this is when staff is going to be coming to the board to give you a preview of some bond documents that we will be bringing to you ultimately for adoption to help us pursue up to $332 million to help advance the Mid-Coast Corridor Transit Project. And then item 19 is related to the 2020 Census Complete Count. If you remember when we brought the draft budget to the board a couple months ago, there were some questions about the role of SANDAG in the census. So we've pulled that out and we're going to be talking to you and give you an idea of exactly what we're doing and how we're working with all of your local cities in the county on the next steps. That's all of the items that we have currently scheduled for the May 24th draft board business agenda. Unless there's any questions?
Thanks, Robin. Questions, comments?
Thank you.
And then for June 14th, we are hoping actually to be able to move up that bond item that I was just talking to you about to June 14th. And we also have an item related to the I-5 Boyd construction project that we hope to take that day. So we didn't have a written agenda. We're still trying to finalize those items, but that's likely what we'll bring to you in June.
Comments, questions? What's looking for motion?
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Vote. Thank you. We'll move on to item 5, legislative status report. Robin will be joined by Lori Bartrell.
Yes. So I'm excited to have Lori join me this month. Lori is actually one of our star planners in our month's planning department, but she has been serving a rotation with the government relations team this year, and so I wanted her to have a chance to come see all of you and update you on the latest she's been monitoring for us at the federal government level.
I think in my 9 or so years here at SANDAG, I've never been to this committee, so my first time I'll present. But yeah, I'm going to provide a quick overview of the federal legislative updates that have been taking place and that are germane to SANDAG's business here. So there are a few main items that I wanted to touch upon. The first of which is the infrastructure package. Just for some background information, there are 3 main types of vehicles at the federal level that you may have been hearing about. The appropriations, which you can think of in terms of an annual budget, the authorization bill, which is currently the FAST Act, and it's set to expire in fiscal year 2020. And then there's the infrastructure package, which could be a complete overhaul of the nation's infrastructure program and priorities. And either one or all 3 of these could take place in this year, but most likely given this Congress, we're most likely looking at one of those 3 options. Passing this year. So in terms of the appropriations, we have been working closely with our federal delegation to outline SANDAG's key priorities, which include requesting an increased annual funding level for fiscal year 2020 for Midcoast under the Full Funding Grant Agreement, or the FFGA, within New Starts. The good news is that the administration announced earlier in April that Midcoast would receive the prescribed amount of funds per that FFGA, and that there's a chunk of funds allocated to New Starts projects for fiscal year 19. So it is possible that additional funds could come our way again. So good news, potential good news. The president also released the fiscal year 2020 budget proposal. And while we expect the budget to morph over time, a few notable highlights include an increase to the Build Grant Program, and the Infra Grant Program. We also saw a slash in the apportionment for capital investment grants, but again, this could change over time with that budget. So in terms of the much anticipated infrastructure package, there's been a lot of movement at the committee level. You've probably all heard by now that House Speaker Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Schumer met this last week with the president to come to an agreement that a broad infrastructure package of $2 trillion is needed. And while this is a big step forward to get that agreement, the next part of the discussion is how do we fund this package? And that's not going to be a quick or easy question to answer and to get agreement on both sides of the aisle. So stay tuned. They're set to meet later this month again to talk about that pay-for option. And then finally, in the past 2 weeks alone, the federal government has released 2 NOFOs, or notices of funding opportunities. So one was for Build, and the other is for an innovative mobility projects and public transportation research program. So SANDAG will be working with its partner agencies over the next couple of weeks and starting to identify some applicant projects that could be eligible for these 2 programs. So with that, that's kind of all I have, and we'll continue to come and update you guys as we make progress and hear more news at the federal level. But thanks for having me. Robin to the stage.
Thank you, Tori.
Yeah.
So there's also a lot going on in Sacramento, especially this week. AB 1730, so this is our RTP, our Regional Plan Extension Bill that Lorena Gonzalez is running for us. It passed unanimously out of both of its policy committees in the Assembly, and also passed unanimously off of the Assembly floor yesterday. So that's great news for us. No concerns or questions so far. It'll now move over to the Senate side and hopefully enjoy the same success on that end, and we'll be good to go for a 2-year extension. Last month, the governor announced a new appointment for the California Secretary of Transportation, and so that person's going to be David Kim upon confirmation by the Senate. This is good news for us. We work closely with David here on our Otay Mesa East project. We also have ties with him through Hassan. He used to work at LA Metro. He's currently the Vice President of Government Affairs at Hyundai. So lots of experience, like I said, good relationship, so that's definitely going to help position us in Sacramento going forward. Yesterday, the governor released his May revise. So if you recall, in January, the governor releases his budget proposal for the next year. In May, they use all of the updated numbers to then make any changes that are necessary, and then the legislature takes that proposal, turns it into something, and then hopefully by June 15th, we have an agreement on the budget. Of note for us in the May revise, he did make some changes to his housing proposal. So if you remember, before he had about a $1.5 billion proposal to support homelessness, address homelessness and housing. Of that amount, there was $750 million that may have flowed either directly or indirectly through Sandag and the region. So of that, I'll break it up. There's $750 million. $250 million of that is for planning technical assistance to support the development of housing throughout the state. That money still is going to be split on a formula basis. So half of it is going to go through the cities and the county on a formula basis, and half of it will go through COGS, or councils of government, like Sandag. There's also now going to be a small set aside for offices of education at the county level to support teacher housing. So that means there's about $5.5 million that will flow through Sandag to support planning assistance for housing, and $5.5 million that will flow directly to your cities and the county for planning and technical assistance for housing. The other part of the pot was $500 million that previously was going to go towards an incentive program to help incentivize housing development, and that previously was going to flow through Sandag to the local jurisdictions. It's now been repurposed, so it will now go to supplement the existing infill grant program that HCD oversees. And that's a competitive grant program that's available for developers and local public housing authorities to be able to get those funds to build housing throughout the state. So right now, the May revise is consistent with the current budget proposal in the legislature. The Senate Budget Committee just passed the same similar framework yesterday. So it's looking like that's where it's going to end up. We're going to continue to monitor that very closely and make sure that, at least at a regional level, we're helping to inform that conversation and where those funds may go to make sure that we're all matching the various goals that we have when it comes to transportation and housing, and meeting some of our environmental goals as it relates to what Sacramento requires us to do. There also was a plus up under cap and trade, so about $252 million are expected given the latest auction revenue forecast. So that's good news again for Sandag, because we tend to be very successful under the cap and trade programs as it relates to the transportation program. So we'll be continuing to partner with your local cities and other stakeholders to make sure we're going after those dollars and bringing as much as we can back to the region. I will say that the governor's May revise does continue to include that link between transportation funding and housing goals. He got a lot of pushback from that. The legislature certainly does not support it. The League of California Cities very strongly opposes that linkage, but it looks like he wants to continue to keep it in there just to make sure that the conversations continue, so that I think he wants to make it clear to everyone that he's serious when he's talking about making sure that we are really focusing on housing and meeting our goals, both in the short term and the long term. So like I said, it's now up to the legislature to use the May revise and turn it into a final budget package by June 15th. Sandag actually has a leadership trip planned to go to Sacramento in a couple weeks, and so it's going to be the perfect timing for us to be a part of these conversations and continue to underscore all of the priorities that we have for the San Diego region. And then lastly, I'll just mention that the California Transportation Commission is coming to San Diego next week. We're really excited to have them here. They are a vital partner when it comes to funding, so it's really important for us to have relationships with the commissioners, show them all of the great work that we're doing. We're going to be taking them on a tour of the North Coast Corridor. The North Coast Corridor did receive $195 million under SB1 last year. The next round for SB1 will be starting in this fall and spring of next year. So we want to make sure they see that we're working together, we're serious when it comes to sustainable transportation, and that we're the ones that they want to be signing those big checks to. So we encourage you to come to the Transportation Commission meeting, and if not, the reception on the 15th, please be there. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I have a question.
Sure.
You know what time of day they're going to be here?
So the meeting starts on the 15th at 1 o'clock.
PM?
1 o'clock p.m., yes, through Thursday.
Okay. Can you get them to give them a tour of our freeways during commute times?
I can invite them to our
Because
freeways.
I think that'd be a great way to introduce them to the problems that we have on our highways.
Sure.
Other comments or questions?
I have a question.
Rebecca?
Are they going to be touring the bluffs?
Not specifically. They requested a tour of the North Coast Corridor, so we will be passing by Mid-Coast Corridor, and I'm sure that we will be talking about the dump. Jim will be on the bus with us. So I'm sure it's going to come up.
I'm sure it will.
as much as possible, because it's a real need. It's
Definitely.
definitely state of good repair.
Anybody else? Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Lori. No further public comment? We are done.